Hello and welcome to Caffeine Entertainment. I'm your host Mental9R and this is another tech series video, and today I'm doing it again with my good friend and cohort and co-host, my fun friend, all of the above, Fin Tin Tin, and we're going to be talking about Elon Musk is on a mission to build the world's biggest supercomputer. Does that cover it? I mean, there's a
Yep.
lot to this story, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like there's more than one data center or Giga-Factory, as they reference in the video. But yeah, why don't I'll give the floor to you. You can talk a bit about it, and we'll go from there.
I mean, yeah, like it seems like Elon Musk is everywhere these days. He is like the ubiquitous super brain. It's funny as well when you talk about AI, which is obviously central to a lot of why he's doing what he's doing. Elon Musk has had a lot of opinions in the past about AI as well, including there's a good chance it's going to be the destruction of humanity. And that it probably means we won't need jobs anymore, or maybe more accurately, we won't need humans, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's a
it's
whole nother topic.
yeah, it's kind of in some ways it's worrisome, I guess, that Elon Musk is so in on this. He's also talked about the neural implants that where we're all basically connected to the hive mind and to do.
Well, he's a
Yeah,
pretty big proponent of the idea that we're living in a simulation too. Like
yeah,
he's done the math on it, and the odds of us not being in a simulation are astronomically small.
yeah.
So
He's
it's
out.
uh, it's interesting.
His thought process is out there, I guess, right? But I guess for this article, it's it's putting into the bricks and mortar, or I guess more accurately, the silicon and nuclear power plants
Yeah,
of like actually he's building a lot of this stuff out, and there's a few reasons why he's doing it, like in,
yeah.
which are linked to his other endeavors, including improving the full self-driving car capability, including making these humanoid robot assistants
Yeah, we
more.
haven't done a video on that, but have you
Yeah,
seen the videos of when he, unveiled them at that event where they came walking out and stuff, and some of the interviews, like one guy kind of interviewed one of them, was talking to the its mannerisms and the way it would move its hands while it was talking, and just the voice, it wasn't robotic. It just sounded like he was talking to another dude, and asked him where he lived, and it was very bizarre to actually watch.
it's a bit creepy. Like I think what he was thinking is that they're essentially going to be a commodity,
Yeah,
much like the household car, in
yeah,
that like every household almost will have one, and they'll do your cleaning and whatever else. And I'm sure it won't be too long before there'll be people protesting in the streets about full independence, or rights for non-human humans and shit, like. So
well, did you play Detroit Become Human?
I haven't actually. I know that was one of the ones that
Ooh,
was
backlogs and
potentially.
replays. If you
Yeah,
haven't watched it, this could be one for that.
it was. Yeah, we mentioned as a potential one for that before. But yeah, like anyway, so there's two, like the self-driving cars, the humanoid robots, and what were the other ones? He was also like the mysteries of the universe, and essentially uh, bootstrapping, or allowing XAI to compete with ChatGPT and potentially surpass it, I guess. So
Yeah,
he's got a lot of different ventures that this is useful for. And yeah, like, I mean, whether you like him and whether you don't like him, and he's got people on both sides of the aisle. He's definitely a big thinker kind of dude, and when he does stuff, he does it in the big way, right? So uh,
yeah, yeah.
it's quite incredible the amounts of money that not only him and others like Microsoft are talking about pushing into AI. It's coming one way or the other, right?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, it is kind of insane. And So there's probably people watching this going like, "You guys, aren't you mainly video games? So how does this relate to video games?" And one of the biggest complaints, especially in the PC crowd, is the constant increase we're seeing in graphics cards specifically. And of course, a big driver of that is this push on AI. I mean, if you look at Elon Musk's adventure here alone, just for his AI training for Tesla, he's looking at buying 50,000 of the H100 like Lovelace compute GPUs from NVIDIA. I think the number was around $10 billion they're spending on this data center or this Giga-Factory that they're building for the Tesla training. Along with those 50,000 H100s, he's going to have 20,000 Tesla chips
Yeah,
also in this data center, all focused on just training for autonomous driving.
and that just to be clear, that 10 billion I think was in the next year. That isn't like
Yeah.
total. That's in the
Yeah,
next year.
exactly, exactly. Very good point. Very good point. And he talks. There's some talk in the video, and I'll link the video in the description. But there's talk about the AI 4 Tesla chips versus AI 5 and the 10 times increase in compute power that they'll have, and how all the new Tesla vehicles will have this AI 5 chip. And Finn and I were kind of talking off screen a little bit about what does this mean for the older Tesla cars? If the new ones are going to have 10 times the compute power, is that going to be some sort of prerequisite for full autonomous driving capability? What will that mean for the older cars? Like, let's say they have AI version 2. Can they actually achieve the same things or do it safely? And this is where I said, Finn, let's leave it for the show, because I'm imagining this situation where an older Tesla car, sure, maybe it's running the same software and it, in theory has the same capabilities, but if it's thinking way slower and doing its computational work way slower because it doesn't have this 10 times increase in compute performance, do I feel as safe in a car that's maybe not as computationally proficient as one of the newer vehicles,
Yeah,
I guess?
it's a very complex question, right? And I think that
Yeah,
there's no doubt that having a faster chip is going to make things work better, irrespective of the software. But the
yeah,
software is also a huge component, right?
for sure.
They were talking or at one point in the video. I mean, I think we all think ChatGPT is impressive.
Hmm.
Like I certainly do, at least.
Yeah,
And but as well, when you ask it a question, it usually takes 2 to 3 seconds to respond. Now,
yeah.
when you're driving a car down the road and there's a civilian who walks out in front of you, a 2 to 3 second thinking time probably not going to be good
Well,
for either party, right?
and
So,
that's exactly what I'm getting at. Like, if the software, sure, maybe it's good enough to make that recognition, but if it takes that chip, and even if it's a half a second longer or 2/10 of a second longer, like human reaction time is roughly around 2/10 of a second. Well, if it turns that into a half a second overall, because the software isn't being processed as fast as it would be on a newer chip or whatever, like a human brain is in the range of 100 teraflops of compute power. I'd love to know what these Tesla chips have in compute power that can be equivalent. I mean, I think that's been part of the challenge in training it, is the human brain perceives everything so much faster, at least visually. When we see stuff, you make those identifications immediately. And training software to do that, I think there's some, well, obviously there's some inherent difficulties in that. And I would think that you would want as much compute power as possible to be able to make those determinations as fast as possible.
so
And it,
you have to differentiate. Sorry to interrupt, but I think you just have to differentiate a little bit between the training, which is something that's primarily done in the data centers, versus the localized, decision
understood.
making. Yeah.
Yeah, understood.
So, but like, but I don't say you're wrong. Nonetheless, I think though it's a combination of how good the training is, how that's let's say transferred or transposed into the software, and then how quick the local AI chip is in processing all these things together. So
Yeah,
I guess the point is that it has to have an effect. It has to have an effect,
for
like
sure.
a chip that's 10 times faster than the older chip. to what extent and whether it would still be safe or not is another question.
Yeah.
And
And I
I think that
mean,
I think
maybe those boards are built in the same, general dimensions and everything with the same connectors, and they can just pull that one out and drop a new one in an older
yeah,
car.
that's the other option, right? I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, they get software updates at Tesla that are, let's say free in terms of like you don't pay an additional cost for those software updates for the most part. I believe, although I did see there was some controversy about that about wanting to charge you for some software updates. But nonetheless, you get software updates. But where are they going to come around and rip out your chip and stick in a new one? Probably less likely, right? That's
probably less likely. Yeah.
it's not just like the expense of doing that, but it's the logistics of doing that as well. And then there was a whole once they're all in AI or however many AI 5 chips are out in the road, they're talking about making that into a whole
Neural
decentralized
network.
neural network hive mind that is going to ultimately take over the world, and all the cars will gang up on us or something. I don't know.
Go around. Yeah, the cars will drive around running people over.
It reminds me of
Mass attack.
a Stephen King movie back in the or Stephen King book, which turned into a movie. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was now. It escapes me. But basically, all the cars and vehicles became sentient, and everyone was worried or hiding in this parking or this cafe on the side of a road. And then the trucks started coming. It was like, oh,
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it either, but it had AC/DC's "Thunderstruck" was like a song from that movie.
no,
Oh man,
I think the Thunderstruck came
wasn't
after that.
wasn't it the? It was like semi trucks or something, right? Like big tractor trailers and junk. If that's the
Yeah,
one I'm thinking of. Anyway, it probably doesn't matter, but point well taken. And I mean, this doesn't even. So I guess my point was, in terms of gaming, when you look at the money that Nvidia is making selling AI purposed, like Lovelace chips in this case, soon to be Blackwell chips, there's absolutely zero incentive. I think their overall gaming revenue now is now under 15% of their overall revenue. Like, and it's shrinking daily pretty much as these AI chips become higher demand products. And you've got his Grok data center that he's working on that's going to have 300,000 B200 GPUs, which are the Blackwell next generation NVIDIA silicon, right? And it's insane to think about that. Like apparently it's $9 billion just in the GPUs alone. Not to mention the other costs in building this massive supercomputer that, according to their mission statement, is just to understand the universe better, which is pretty crazy. That he's got that kind of money to just throw around into these projects is insane
and
to me.
yeah, the other thing as well, especially in terms of how it impacts video games, but just in general, the other thing to bear in mind as well is, again, we recommend that you watch the video, but it isn't just Elon Musk doing this. This article is about Elon
Yeah,
Musk, but Microsoft are spending, with OpenAI, are spending apparently 100 billion in doing this stuff. So they're going to
yeah,
need chips too, right? They're going to need chips as well. So
yeah.
there's definitely going to be a shortage, I would imagine, unless they come up with new and fancier ways to mass produce these chips. There's going to be some impact on the gaming world and the expense of these chips, you would think, right?
Yeah. Now, this just, we talked a little bit about this before, Finn, and at some point, I remember Tesla having AMD GPUs in them. And now I'm questioning, I don't know who makes these custom Tesla chips. Maybe those are made by AMD. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that more. Maybe it's entirely separate and they've got their own design team and they're made by Tesla, or whatever. The design's by Tesla. I don't know, but AMD is missing out big time. And they do have an opportunity. Like I know they've got their like M100s or whatever they were, MI something chips that they build for this, but I mean they're a very, very small time player in all of this, probably smaller in the AI arena than they are in gaming today. But I do have to question AMD's strategy and why they aren't pushing harder in gaming, because with the prices that we're seeing come from Nvidia, and I think this might be where Intel because if I'm not crazy, they still have fabs in the U.S. So they do have that advantage, especially with the change of government and new tariffs coming in again from things being built overseas. Intel could really be a big player here. If they're building all their stuff locally in the US, they're not going to be subject to those same tariffs. So they could have a real price advantage in that arena on especially like the mid-range stuff. So as long as they can come up with something competitive that would fall into that, the 5060 category, or like the AMD world, if they could get something close to a 7800 like performance, or I guess what would be a whatever AMD's next gen like RDNA 4 is in that bracket, Intel could really do some undercutting on price. And maybe they could be a bit of a savior for some of the gaming world by coming in with decent performance at a much more reasonable price. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I'd have to do a bit more research as to what is the driving factor. I mean, I have some level of understanding about it, but I certainly don't have a complete understanding about what are the bottlenecks in producing this amount of chips, etc., for whoever it is, right? Because you're right. I mean, in
It really just
theory,
comes down to fab capacity
yeah, I
at
think
this
so.
point.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I thought there was like obviously silicon is not one of them, but I thought there was some precious metals as well that were involved in the manufacturing that was things that were only available in certain areas in China and stuff. And but yeah,
mhm.
I mean, I don't know 100%. I'll admit. But yeah, a lot of people are going to need a lot of chips soon, and
Yeah,
if it's only Nvidia, there's not going to be much for anything else
yeah,
besides these factories. And one other thing as well, not related to the chips, is that they were mentioning as well, and you pointed out an article to me earlier about Google buying nuclear power centers for the new Microsoft data center. That they're
yeah,
saying they will need their own nuclear power plant, and they noticed as well that Amazon had
yeah.
built or bought some property or building a new factory next to a nuclear power plant. So, yeah, maybe it's going to be revolutionize the energy world as well, because
Yeah,
Musk and others have been talking about crazy power requirements to power these places,
for sure.
and whatever else. Obviously Musk is a pretty right wing guy, big supporter of Trump and all that, but he also cares about the environment. Like that's one of the reasons he's in Tesla. One of the reasons he's in electric cars. He does believe in climate change. He is someone who is always whether you believe in climate change or not. He's big on environmental protection. That's one of the reasons
Yeah,
that he started Tesla. One of the reasons why he shared his electric car design with others or specs. So, I mean, it could like if they're all building these nuclear power plants, maybe that's going to be another,
that would definitely be a positive outcome
yeah,
in my mind. I mean, nuclear power makes way more sense than solar or wind. Just from an overall footprint perspective, even in its impact to the environment around it. Why have this huge, massive solar farm that takes up, hundreds of acres of land that only produces power when it's sunny out?
Well, I mean, I think that
Uh,
the
you know,
primary power source that it would usurp would be fossil fuels. I would think.
mhm.
Right.
Sorry that I missed a bit of
The,
that,
the,
but
no, the primary power source that it would replace
oh yeah,
is
yeah. Oh,
fossil
sorry, yeah.
fuels, right?
I missed the replace there. I thought
Yeah.
you were saying the primary power source would be fossil fuels.
Uh,
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, no, and that's exactly correct, right? Like, and I think this is something you're seeing in Ontario now. They're adopting more micro nuclear power solutions, right? If I'm not crazy, I mean, where I used to live in BC, they're primarily hydroelectric there. I think it's 94% is hydroelectric, so a relatively clean power source. Now, of course, I'm in oil country, but even here, with carbon capture and storage and the clean natural gas plants they're building, there's a big move towards that, and more demonstration of the capabilities of nuclear, I think, would be fantastic
yeah,
because it is a clean power source.
yeah,
The and sure there's some toxic waste involved. We can't forget about that, but that's massively reduced from the old power plants in the 60s and whatnot.
yeah.
They're far more efficient now. on
You know,
that front.
I'm definitely a fan of nuclear. I mean, obviously, there's pretty significant precautions you need to take, but as long as you take them and you do it well, then yeah,
Yeah,
it's almost not exactly free power, but once it's up and running, it's
yeah,
good to go, right? But
yeah,
anywho, like that's a little bit off topic.
yeah. It is, but
Elon has got big ideas. He's not alone, and it's. I find it kind of ironic that the same guy who thinks that computers may take all our jobs and destroy the world or have a possibility to destroy the world is the guy who's investing heavily in it. But he
well,
actually he does believe in regulation of AI as well.
he
That there
does.
needs to be regulation of AI. So yeah, I mean,
Well,
I guess it's good to see someone who believes in let's say sensible. I mean, probably if anyone does comment in the video, probably people will disagree with us on this. Like, but I do believe that he thinks that AI is potentially dangerous and it needs to be used responsibly. So I like people who think like that to be involved in AI, right?
no, for sure. And I mean, there's the flip side. If he is convinced we're in a simulation, maybe he just doesn't care that much, and he's like, "Well, I'll just push this along."
Yeah.
Who knows?
I'll just make a backup of myself and make sure it goes into another simulation.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But anyway, let's wrap it up. Finn, why don't you tell him where you can be found?
I can be found at Fin1010 down
There
there
you go.
with a one instead of the first I, and Fin1010 all alphabetical characters on PlayStation, Xbox, and Steam.
And I am at Mental9R on X. You can find me at Mental9R on Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, and just about anywhere else you can play games. And of course, you are with us at Caffeine Entertainment in both Rumble and on YouTube. And if you enjoyed the video and you stuck with us this long, don't be afraid to hit that like and maybe even subscribe. There's a thought. And comment below with your thoughts. I mean, by no means are Finn and I experts in this area, but we thought it would be an interesting topic to discuss. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mental9R. He's Fin1010. This is Caffeine Entertainment. Don't forget, it's time to wake up and play some games.